Watch it. Think it's recording. Sounds like it.
Well, I'm just gonna let you introduce yourselves because I'm just relaxing tonight.
Well, thanks for having us. I'm Lita Becker. I'm the manager of Evergreen Funeral Home in Everett, Washington, and I've been in this profession for 28 years.
I am Levi Sutton, Senior Funeral Director at Evergreen Funeral Home and Cemetery. And I actually started in this profession 40 years ago this year. So,
He's a funeral director and embalmer. I'm a funeral director, past embalmer, and we both operated crematories, done embalming, every aspect of funeral life. So we brought some information to share with you, and we have a few slides, but it really just, I guess today you could ask a funeral director anything you ever wanted to know about this world.
we can,
Glad that when you were doing that introduction right there and you said we've done everything including embalming and stuff like that, and we brought some and I was like, please don't say samples, please.
well, we have this low sample. That's good. That's good. Thanks, Max.
And we have a slide deck. Will Kathy get to see the slide deck
Yes.
too when we put it on?
Okay,
We'll
cool.
be sharing.
Can we do a little more?
This really
David is awesome.
This thing.
Oh, this is great.
We do meetings remotely with a lot of families since COVID. But
Is
it's
it-
not this high tech.
And what are you?
So the neuron
Well,
camera
no,
right
this
there,
looks like the
Yeah.
one we use, right?
and then you just look up your laptop
Isn't
and
this-
shared screen on Zoom.
Isn't this WebEx? What do you,
And
This is Zoom.
Zoom?
Zoom.
Oh, I like the camera. We can see the whole room. Yeah.
And then the people on Zoom can
Can they
ask
still see
questions.
us? Can you
Yes.
go back to us so they can see
So
us?
up in the upper corner,
Oh, okay.
depending on how they want to see it on
Okay,
screen.
they can switch back and forth. Cool. Wave everybody. Hi.
Kathy can see us. Sorry, you're feeling bad, Kathy.
Yeah, it's just good.
Yeah.
And they'd say COVID's done.
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
It's here to see.
So, I think we'll tell a little bit more about ourselves, just so you guys know, since we have some time. And I don't know how much time we have total, maybe have.
Till we're done.
Okay, till we're done. My career started abruptly at about your age. I was 15 years old. I was wakened in the middle of the night by my father. And he said, get your suit on, get your tie on, and get in the car. You have 3 minutes. Like, where are we going at 2:30 on a Saturday morning? And I quickly found out when I got in the car that we were going to a residence. The other guy was sick and the other guy was out of town, something like that. And so I went to the residence to help bring somebody into our care in Burlington. And that was actually 40 years ago, in 83. So March of 83. So we passed the 40, I passed the 40-year mark. Besides spending a couple of years as a missionary in Ecuador, a couple of years of college and on to mortuary college. And then I've been with the company now with the merger. I was at Purdue Walters with Cassidy Funeral Home on Pacific Avenue for 22 years. And then in around 07, we had a merger and I ended up officing at Evergreen part-time and then full-time in 2014. So, and then Lita transferred from one of our other funeral homes in Bellevue, then moved to Seattle up to here. And so we've known each other for a long time now.
I've worked at most of
For
them.
20,
I've
yeah,
worked at
she's-
Sunset Hills and Floral Hills and Blights in Seattle.
West Seattle.
Southwest Mortuary,
Yeah.
South Seattle. We've been around.
So we've been together at least, I think, 5 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
at Evergreen, more.
It's been more than that.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Pandemic times.
Oh, right. I forgot about this. And yes, I went to New York and worked for 2 weeks.
Did, he was relief,
in
he did relief in New York.
April of 2020. So it was early on. I had people on Facebook texting me like, are you crazy? What do you think you're doing? Getting on a plane and going to New York. I'm like, I'm going to help people that can't help themselves. And I'm going to help people that are exhausted. We're in weeks 8 now, and they were tired of working 12, 14 hours a day. So I went and worked 12, 14 hours a day. There were 42 of us that flew in that week. And I met people from at least 25 states that I could count, from ambulance drivers to all kinds of different people, from the casket drivers. I said, don't you know where to put the caskets? The guy's like, no, I'm from Michigan. And I drove here with my own truck. And he said, without a GPS, I couldn't even find all these places on Long Island that I'm looking for. So I was in Queens. And it was quite the experience. And anyway,
Yeah.
and then we're just happy that things are stabilizing, at least in this area for us lately. So we're here to tell you more about things we offer. Some of these things a decade ago, we didn't really offer. We didn't have the technologies that we have now, and we have a lot more.
Right.
You know,
When we started, it was like, you can pick package A, B, or C, and do you want Old Rugged Cross and Amazing Grace or Old Rugged Cross and in the Garden? That's your choice.
Yeah, right.
So that's why we brought some of the more newer philosophy items
Right.
today to show you. And I think our slide deck is only about 15 slides, so we can progress to the next slide.
And
Are you our progressors,
Right.
David?
All right.
Kathy, if you have any questions, just type them in the
Yeah.
chat or go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and insert at any time.
Absolutely. I think there's 2 participants.
And chime in anytime.
So we're part of Dignity Memorial, and you might have heard of Dignity Memorial, but it's the largest funeral provider in the US, North America, more than 1,900 providers. So we have some vision statements which are supporting the communities which we live in and raise our families in, honoring those who serve. So veterans are a large part of our focus, and comforting those who grieve. It makes us strong to have that many funeral homes. We always have someone we can call on to back us up, which is different. My daughter made a picture and it says, wow.
I love it. It's beautiful.
It's being very patient.
She is. It's a good one.
Yeah. One thing I just want to mention about having the providers we have in the area, we do have a dozen or so funeral homes, and we have had situations where tragic accident, family went off into a river in Eastern Washington on vacation, and we were able to provide all the hearses they need, 4 hearses, and go into the church all at the same time with all the funeral directors we needed. And mom and pop funeral home, you couldn't do that type of thing. So we're able to pull in resources from our neighboring funeral homes in emergency situations like that. And then the Oso disaster, we were heavily involved in that. Yeah, we were the mainstay of funeral home, or one in Arlington, and even how to visit funeral directors. Yeah, well, that was.
So, like we mentioned, there's a lot of new products and offerings, and we try to make every family's vision a reality. So, some of the more out of the box services are what we strive for. When we meet a family, we want to know about their loved one, and then we try to create a service based on their personality versus just here's your funeral service. So there's lots of new offerings now. One thing, I think it's later on in the slideshow here, we can send your loved one to space. There's a coral reef under the sea. There's a picture there of a scattering boat. We do that. We go on a sailboat quarterly. And then of course we're arranging all types of gatherings, indoor, outdoor, food, all of that.
And there's a lot to it, and there's a lot that we offer. We offer placement for cremated remains gardens. We've built 2 new cremated remains gardens just in the last decade. One up on Cascade View, and the other one is up by our mausoleum. There's probably over a dozen different places in our park to put ashes, whether it be indoors in a secure lock building in a glass frontage that's niche that is lit all night, or outdoors in another garden, mausoleums or interment, places, whatever the families would like.
Cremation's on the rise. So that
It
is something that the funeral homes are paying attention to. And in some parts of Washington, for instance, Seattle, 90% of the families are selecting cremation. Out here, I think it's about 52% or so.
50.
Yeah.
A little over 50 maybe.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because we ran into this with my folks, and I know that, faith-based stuff is changing, and they were Catholic, and that's different, but as we're kind of running out of space to put people, are the theology behind death and burial and stuff, is it changing?
Well, it would go by denomination. Lutherans, I can speak for that, have never said, well, the body can't be resurrected unless you have a body, whereas sometimes Catholics have. But even my own mother being Catholic, she was cremated. And the Catholic Church had no problem with that. I think those that have been very restrictive to body, resurrection and needing to have a body, you can't be resurrected because that's why it is that theology. There's becoming an awareness of how restrictive that theology is based on human understanding. If God is omnipotent, then God can do anything. What do you do with the fire victims, right? Or people that died in a fiery car crash? Does that mean they have no chance? So why would it not be the same? And so God can do amazing things.
Thanks, because I know we didn't have any problem with my mom, but my dad, oh my goodness, that was a fun time not. So I just was wondering.
Well, it's interesting when you think about the science behind it, because eventually we're all going to turn to ash and dirt and dust anyways. So you can either do it now or do it later. It'll just naturally do it later. So
We got a letter from the Archdiocese about 6 years ago, and maybe it was longer than that. Maybe it was, maybe it was like 10 years ago. And it said that the church now does condone cremation as long as you treat cremated remains like you would body and consecrated cemetery.
Yeah.
So,
That's one thing they still
Yeah.
want is a place them somewhere in there, and therefore they have like 3 nature cemeteries around the area too.
every faith denomination can be different though, you know, where they stand on that. In the Christian denomination across the board, then you would deal with interfaith as well. And there's just different layers and
And
the
then-
spectrum within that denomination too.
You deal with some laws in some countries that you cannot be married,
Right.
like literally that they require.
Yeah.
So, and he's on call, so forgive him.
No, it's okay, I just. assumed
so
you're muted.
We've got lots of different options, like I mentioned, this is actually a pet. So I'll show you too, Kathy. This is a cremated remains spun into glass. But if you wanted to take a look, it's a new offering that we have. We also offer jewelry that hold a little bit of cremated remains.
Yeah,
I didn't wear my cross, but mine.
Oh, you have one?
Yeah. Inside the cross is my little ashes.
So the glass orb has like a rose inside and it comes in multiple different colors like purple, pink, green.
And I've
And
seen
even
this for,
stars and stripes.
you said a pet, but I've actually seen this for human as well.
Yes, it is for humans, but
It's-
when
it
we
is,
brought
but
it.
just so you know, it doesn't have like human hair.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I
The,
mean.
the company, they have like Super Dog, I think is what they call them, that they have distributed throughout.
We've even got little urns that look like birds and scattering urns that are made of cardboard so that you can easily scatter the loved one over the water, which by the way is legal in
Oh, it's legal
Washington
now?
State. Oh, yes.
Really?
Legal over navigable waters or public lands.
How is it worded? Nav.
Navigable.
Have a,
Basically, if you can go on a boat, so you can't go to the little lake. I mean, you probably could. but-
restricted
you not to do
areas
that.
or still public parks and the
Yeah.
dark green areas of your map require permits. But they ask you not to put in public parks, so, yeah, no, since like 87, the laws have changed here in our state quite a while ago. So,
Yeah,
We
And on
do have,
I can also do
property,
the
you can
forest.
do it.
and
We-
private property.
we even have a scattering well, it's a dry well, it's a sundial, bronze sundial. Where there's probably over 50 scattered in this well that was pre-built to consolidate space, and there's a book with little name plaques on it like that, and there's many scattered in that they didn't for the name on the plaque.
And many
But-
churches even have a.
Yeah. Some churches have.
And sometimes I know, so the chaplaincy stint that I did up at St. Joe's in Bellingham, there, they do a quarterly time where those premature babies that were born unable to, maybe sometimes not even named, right? They'll do the cremation and then they have like a gathering of all those couples or family members
Wow,
to do a service.
In Bellingham.
that's incredible. There's so much need for that down here, I
Yeah.
think, too.
Because it's one of those.
It's like, it's hard to deal with.
I agree.
The screen is now showing the Memorial Space Flight that we spoke about.
That is too cool.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, one of the options there is that there's multiple different options. It's about 2,500 to
This
go,
rose holds some cremated remains.
out of the atmosphere and come back.
This is a smaller portion of her.
And I think it's,
So,
5,000 to go around the earth and it'll ping your phone. So, yeah, you get 1 gram that goes in orbit of the satellite, and if it's within 100 square miles of where you're at, it pings your phone to say, "Oh, you're above your level. It's above you now."
So.
Then you can go to the moon or to infinity and beyond when past Jupiter.
She said, how does it get up there?
Rocket, yeah.
So you guys.
Space flight, yeah, there's a company that we partner with. They haven't left since before COVID, but they have a large gathering either in California, Texas, or Florida where everyone can come. You have to pay your own way to get there and pay your own hotels, but they read all the names and then the rocket takes up just a few miles away, which is like apparently the ground shakes and you can hear it and everything. And for those that wanted to go to space or be astronauts, get their little wish. So
Yeah.
it's kind of modern. Yeah, it's like,
Well, and who knows what life forms are out there and they're gonna collect that DNA and.
That's right.
there you go. Fun.
That's talking about the under the sea. We have that in Miami Beach, the Neptune Coral Reef. We're actually, Neptune is part of our company, if you've ever heard of the Neptune Society. We
Yeah.
own that too.
Yeah.
So, and next screen. And a big part, like I mentioned in the beginning, of what we do is honoring veterans. We had a huge Memorial Day service this Monday. We are really honored to serve veterans. We take care of the whole process. If there's a veteran, family provides their DD 214. Important thing, if you're ever dealing with a veteran, Marta, if they're a veteran, get that DD 214 and put it in the file.
Get it located.
Don't
That's the
lose that.
hardest
Yeah.
part.
214.
DD 214 or discharge paperwork. If they can't find it, it really causes problems for
Yeah.
us and delays and if they want the full military honors.
If
or-
they're still active duty, you don't have to worry about that because they haven't been discharged and
No.
the active duty part will actually, they'll take care of.
They take care of everything active
Yeah.
duty, and we've
Yeah.
had a few. Each of us have served.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Unfortunately. For each of us have served the active duty community.
Yeah, so we're not.
My father's retired Navy, and so is my grandfather and my father-in-law, but I never served. I have a brother that served. So, I had knee surgeries growing up, so.
So we have, one of the myths or things that people think is if you're a veteran, then the funeral is paid for. Unfortunately, it's not. What is paid for is a flag because of their service to our country, military honors at your graveside service, and the ability to be placed in our national cemetery in Kent at no charge. The funeral home still has charges, but the burial spot is covered.
And
Now,
I've done a service down at our in the cemetery at
Tahoma.
Tahoma.
mhm,
And man, they run a tight ship there.
they
They do.
do,
You show up, you've got 15 minutes.
It's a tight schedule.
exactly.
It is. You show up
Yes.
at this time, you roll in, you unload, you do your
Well,
graveside and.
the
you go back.
military honors takes about 12 of the 25 minutes you really have, and so it gives pastor very little time for committal service.
Yeah.
And I've actually had another pastor going on, and they walked up and tapped him on the shoulder, and they said, "This
Go do
concludes
that."
the services," because he wasn't respecting their time frame. They have services coming in every 30 minutes,
Oh,
and they only have so many shelters, so.
Yeah.
And they haven't built any additional ones because they're already busy enough with all the burials. But
But
it's
like
a
military,
beautiful place.
it's tight
It's a
ship.
beautiful place.
Yeah, but if
It's a
you
tight
do
ship.
choose a local cemetery, there is a military marker that will
Mm-hmm.
be provided, and the funeral home helps with that too. I would imagine most funeral homes.
And they'll come play taps anywhere, even in your
Okay.
backyard. If you end up bringing ashes home temporarily and you
And we
want,
come here.
they can have them
Oh, yeah.
at church, yeah.
So we always recommend pre-plan. Pre-planning is important because it does make those informed decisions with your family. The emotional burden is eased, the financial burden is eased, and you can reflect your wishes. So we did bring a couple personal planning guides we'll give you.
These are free
Right.
guides we have. They're
What
very
pastor can-
comprehensive.
I think I've given Marta one.
I think I'm impressed with pastors though, whoever created this one, the church.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. One thing that we really want to say about that is not only prepaying and locking in the cost for future inflation, basically that is taken care of. But the other one has to do with families arguing later over, oh, mom wanted to be cremated. No, she wanted to be buried. If it's in writing and it's witnessed by 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
And it states to be cremated and released to such and such, multiple names. Or on a legal advance directive or notarized, that's like golden.
Yes.
Then there can't really be any arguments about that. And that's just great because in our years, over 50 years together in this, we have had a few families that were kind of,
A few.
well, they took months to decide.
Yeah.
Sometimes they had to go to court and spend money. And that's just like, how?
Court order.
I mean, think about
When
all
you
the
come across
family assets.
plans that have been notarized, and there's multiple different ones in the house that are found.
Oh,
What do you do then?
The last one is the
The
golden one.
latest date.
The
yeah.
latest date is the one that usurps all the others.
But one
if
family member
it's-
had this one.
if it's
another
legally-
family had This one.
And if it was executed properly, 2 signatures are notarized. Just their signature is not enough. And if it says initial on each page and they didn't initial on each page, it's not technically valid. There's a lot of things that can throw it. So, and we often scan them and send them to our legal department for review, and they come back and they say, not.
yeah, most attorneys don't know how to draw it up to be specific enough to allow what that family wants, at least when it comes to the funeral or cremation.
Even if it just says cremated, okay,
It's so bizarre to me, I'm sorry,
We
that
can-
just,
Families.
we can
say,
cremate them.
in deep grief, the unbroken.
But let's say there's 4 children and 2 haven't spoken to mom and dad forever.
Yeah.
That's not 51%. We need majority. And so we have to track down the other 2 kids, or at least one of the 2,
Tracking
to
service.
make sure that they agree with what's going on. I mean, we could cremate, but then we can't even really sanction. So it's like, well, we choose not to until they decide, because they need to know that their parent is away, we feel.
Yeah.
We feel that you can't really divorce a parent. I mean, much as people walk away sometimes, but you know what? I would say the majority of our families get along great, really they do. And it's great, especially when people pre-plan.
So the law in Washington states that a person can be cremated with their own pre-signed form.
Advanced directive.
Throughout advance directive. But if they haven't done that, then the next of kin is the spouse. If there is no spouse, then it falls to the adult children or the majority of it. If there isn't that, then it's gonna go to the parents. If there's no parents living, then it's the majority of the adult siblings. So we have to go through that lineage by law, every funeral home does, to move forward.
And
And
sometimes,
there's,
yeah,
I actually have a couple members right now that they have no remaining parents.
Okay.
They did not have any children,
Okay,
and they don't have any siblings. What do you do then?
and no parents living,
No parents living.
so they have none of those.
They're the last.
then it goes to the most
Yeah.
responsible party.
It would be best for them to
It
pre-sign.
would be best on the pre-sign and authorize someone to take care of it.
Yeah, then
Like,
this is not.
whether there's an estate or not, it doesn't matter, but at least someone can then step forward and authorize. Without us having to wait like 90 days for other family members to come forward.
Yeah.
We don't like to wait that long.
I don't think they've gotten anything, and when you start dealing with dementia or things like that, who's the caregiver, and what happens if the healthy caregiver ends up in the hospital, and now,
Mm.
yeah.
And the hard part for us is if there are siblings, sometimes they're all in other nursing homes across the US. And now we're dealing with their children or grandchildren, and they're like, well, I'm power of attorney, I think, or, and they're trying to provide their documentation.
Yep,
Also,
And
grandniece is a great.
well, because they're powers of attorney for, but they tend to be powers of attorney for siblings. Then siblings that can't really act for themselves because now they're in a nursing home. And so it gets really convoluted for us sometimes. Yeah.
but if you get this done ahead of time, just making sure your wishes are known,
If they're written
And
and
it's not-
signed, then we can really just.
regardless if you prepay or not. It's good to have your wishes there, yeah.
And if you move,
Yeah.
update your funeral home address with the, especially if you have a prepaid policy, it's one thing people don't think. They'll change their bank, they'll change all the other stuff, and they don't think, and then we'll mail out letters. Like when we merged funeral homes,
Right.
and then we didn't know where a lot of people were, but we still have the files and records, and they still have the phone number, so they track us down.
Yeah,
so can you transfer from one dignity to another?
yes, that's one of the great parts about the Dignity funeral homes. If you move more than 75 miles away, your policy moves with you, and it's guaranteed wherever you go. So when you, unlike an independent funeral home, they can't guarantee that in California, but we can, so wherever you go, except, let's see, is it North Dakota where we don't have any?
Yeah, I think we're in 43 states, but we are in all the provinces. So, but we are in about 43 states. There's just some that are so smaller out there that, and then some states don't like corporations, we found out. We won't name them. But, yeah, but you could still take your policy and say, okay, this has a cash value to it. You go to like North Dakota and you're like, well, hey, do you think you could premiate me for this much?
Yeah,
Like, oh,
You
you're
don't
from
have to do
Seattle?
that.
Sure.
when you guarantee it, it's guaranteed for
You might get cash
always,
back.
when you
Yeah.
pre-plan and guarantee it. And you can move to another state and have it under
Right.
another provider. We also offer bereavement travel, when someone's passed away, special phone number, so the family can get a bereavement travel rate. And compassion helpline, so that's people for 13 months to provide grief support by phone for no cost to the family,
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day.
That's,
And we're also available 24/7. You saw that second slide, we didn't really talk about it, but
We are.
it's what we do. I mean, it's what we do. We have a funeral director on call all the time. One of us rotates in Snohomish
Well, we
County.
are every night, you and me.
Well, the boss sometimes phone blows up at midnight when other funeral directors are calling, like.
Yeah, but that's what we do, and we love it. That's why we chose it. If we didn't need money to live, I think we would both still probably do this type of work.
No, I have a son that's been
Yeah.
at Boeing for 12 years that makes more than I do. And it's okay.
Yeah,
But you know, this is my career, it's a calling. It's like, you know, it's really, I found what I do in life and I really enjoy helping people through one of the worst times of their life.
and you said your father was obviously in the business.
My father actually, retired Navy at the ripe old age of 42, 22 years in the Navy. And decided that with 8 children still at home that he had to have a job. And he didn't like civil service and he ended up becoming the manager of the funeral home in Bremerton. And I decided that working for a retired Navy chief was more difficult than I realized. And I came to this side of the water over here from Kitsap County. I came to Snohomish County and I really enjoyed it. Raised my 5 children. I have 2 grandchildren that are 8 and 4. And in fact, Nova's close to Addie's age, I think. And it's been a blessing.
Yeah.
To live in this county.
I think that was the thing that surprised me the most about working with you guys in my other life. We had a gal that died with no family. And the respect and the honor that you guys showed Granny Gogo. I ran into her picture the other day. It was eye-opening to me that people in your industry really put their money where their mouth is. You know, it's not just lip service, and it had more of an impact on me than you will ever know
no,
on how you guys dealt with that whole situation.
we had a funeral for her because there was nobody to have a funeral. But Marta was there playing guitar with her husband, and she's saying.
My husband came and
Yeah.
played.
Yeah. I mean, people that she know
Yes.
for, her community where she lived for a while. It's just neat. And we hope this end to celebrate and honor and reflect. We have wonderful broadcast system that we had before COVID,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're still not charging to broadcast our funerals live stream. And leaders decided we're probably not going to charge for quite a while longer, because if somebody gets sick, they really still want to tune in and watch it. We're okay with that. That you're not in the back coughing your guts out, and everybody's turning around going, why are you here? But so we're still not charging for that, and it's been a blessing. We have iTunes connections, we have all this stuff. We have video slideshows that we do. Even can incorporate short video clips, like up to 2 minutes long each, in our slideshows now. And that's like one of the most modern things that we've been able to do.
And on another note, we are very involved in the community. Levi is part of the Lions Club.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Very
make that
active.
Lions for about 15
We did the
years.
same presentation there a couple weeks ago.
And
I'm on the board for Providence Hospice, so I don't have the magnet to wear that. So we have also knowledge in those areas and can help people navigate that.
volunteered in Boy Scouts for probably over 25 years until recently.
Yeah,
My 2
yeah.
youngest made Eagle Scout and kind of morphed to the other things. So more helping with Lions Group and other things that I do in my church group.
He's very benevolent in his life. He goes from work, he leaves usually late. And then he's going right into helping some woman who has no food, and then he's mowing somebody's yard, and I kid you not,
Moving
every night.
couches, moving mattresses,
That's what he does every night.
helping people, you know, homeless guy in the hotel
Yeah, he's
that, like I should have put up the other day and getting him food because he doesn't have teeth. So we had to get different food than we can offer from the storehouse available. So yeah, then he can choose.
He goes to the church right across the street from you.
Mhm.
Yes.
But sometimes, not all of the time.
And so Bishop saying over there, oh,
You know, I actually go into one of the, but I know that this is one of our, one. Anyway.
What's been
We'll
the-
talk about that later.
Yeah, what's been the biggest change in the industry that you guys have kept from COVID?
I think having the ability to have families sign things through DocuSign
Mhm.
and meet us, we do WebEx, which is like this, but not as cool as this setup. Where they don't have to come into the office.
It's changed our world because so many people, and actually, over a year ago, we started concierge delivery of actually back to their home and no extra charge within a 25-mile radius. So some people, they just don't want to leave, and that's okay. Or they don't, maybe they can't drive right now, or they don't feel well enough. Because it's one thing to come in and we have, whenever you come to pick up ashes, if you're bringing them back to your house, and they're in the urn, or even just in, you know, we have a nice velvet bag, no matter what urn you pick, we have a little candle that's lit and a little poem that we read and give them time to kind of process
You
all
don't
that.
just pass them.
Just like
right.
taking them and going back out to a car and tears are running and you're deciding like, am I gonna drive or not? It's probably not safe right now.
Right.
So being able to deliver them to their residence or wherever they want is it's just an extra service that we've been offering.
I wonder as well, that you mentioned that with COVID, so obviously most people didn't live stream any service before, unless you were in some big mega church.
Yeah,
Most of us didn't. And what we learned in the beginning of the pandemic, because I learned to splice videos, right? Because you were putting together a whole service, people would record a reading or scripture reading or whatever at home and then email that in and I slice it up. But we're hoping to get to the point in the sanctuary where if someone is at home and wants to fully participate in a service, that they can do that live. They can be online like this, and then let's say Kathy wanted to read one of the scriptures during a service. She would pop up, she would read, be part of that in that moment and still be active in the service.
Just be careful for hackers, because that happens.
Yeah,
Some of ours were using that. And they bomb in and they say stuff that's inappropriate or they flash their own degrees on the screen and you're like, so I've heard,
Yeah.
ours are still,
Knock on wood, we haven't had
if
that.
you're elderly or sick or
right.
No, it happened to me before.
ours are one way, ours are only one way in
Right.
our church, because that's just the way they want to keep it safer right now.
We can go ahead and shut that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Kathy, so we can see.
So-
I was
before we head out, we always like to ask, is there any question,
like,
even if it's strange, what question have you ever wanted to ask a funeral director?
Well, one thing I'm wondering, there's been more interest in what I guess mean burials. What kind of services do you provide in that area? Anything?
we
At this
do,
point.
we have a cemetery in Redmond that we've dedicated to more green. Where it'll be in the woods and we'll bury in like a wicker casket, I guess you could call it. And the stone can be just a rock. It can be engraved if you want, but it could just be the rock that you pick that goes there and you know that shape. Or they can etch into it, make a flat sign. And then there's also
In July, we've
newest thing.
paired up with a human composting company, so we're offering that service through them. That you can pre-plan if that's something that interests you.
And it takes about
It
2
takes about
months-ish,
45
45
days for the process. And then you have the choice of taking the soil, which is a lot. I can't remember how much it is, but it's kind of a truck
It's about a yard of
Right.
yard
Yeah.
of soil.
You have to-
or they
Right.
put in a special forest
Mm-hmm.
that they've contracted to.
She has a tour in front of us. So I'm
Friday and watch.
Yeah, it's like you're in a plastic tube and it tumbles and it turns every so many days and it's just, I don't know. It's so hard. Well, we Googled it and we're
Right.
curious about it.
So it's
But-
not cremation?
That is not, that is full,
Dang.
so there
I thought it
is.
was cremation and then being integrated to soil. We're actually talking about speed.
Yeah,
Composting.
it's better, higher temperature and turning in soil. And as it turns, it just, you biodegradate quicker. But there is another one that has been going,
Electrolysis, we offer that too at some of our locations.
some people call it water
Water,
cremation.
Yeah.
But it's a high pressure and heated and then the alkaline and then when it, comes out, the bones are just brittle, just like they come out of the crematory. The one drawback to that is you can't go with anything else on it at all. Of course, no jewelry, which we haven't cremated for years now, but there's other things to that and
It's a weird question. What if you have an implant? Because I've had a knee replacement. What happens does that kind of disqualify you from?
I don't know.
So with cremation, pacemakers, defibrillators, anything with a battery source has to be removed prior to cremation. But implants, things like that, that's fine. We use a magnet afterwards to remove all of that from the crematory.
Yeah, and if it's a full-on knee or something, that's easy to.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the items are not magnetic. Some titanium screws don't get pulled by magnet. So we kind of have to make sure that we get, before they put in the pulverizer, get anything else that can damage our pulverizer. And that's discarded. Some families have actually asked for it back, a titanium hip. And the grandsons went and made rings out of their grandpa's titanium hip.
Okay, that's
weird. It's like, wow.
What?
It's titanium, even under high heat, but still usable, I guess.
But I had those questions. That's the kind of questions you get to ask. Is there any other interesting questions like that? I love
Kathy, you
it.
got any interesting questions?
Well, it's not a very interesting question. I just, and I may have missed, I might have tuned out in the middle and I'm asking a question you've already answered. So with my mom, we had picked a different funeral home provider just because it was a name that we knew. And with that experience, I've decided that for my dad, we were going to pick a different funeral home provider. But I mean, when we know exactly what we want and everybody's all on the same page, I mean, we know beyond a doubt, he knows beyond a doubt he wants to be cremated. Because he's in a senior living situation to move in there, you have to write down the name of the funeral home. So we've written down Evergreen. Are we supposed to have spoken with you or get his name on your list beforehand, or do we just, when
No, you don't have to. I think
we just call you at midnight and say, come get him?
Yes, we're available 24 hours a day. So even when people don't have anything pre-planned, that's fine. As soon as we get the call, we send our staff and then we reach out usually the next day and have your family come in and make arrangements.
Okay.
Mhm.
And one thing for many years, even before COVID, that we've been doing is when people are unsure and they don't know, we'll have neighbors sometimes call us and say, my neighbor passed and trying to get a hold of the daughter and she's on a trip in Europe and I don't have her cell number, but I have her house number. We will pick somebody up and bring them into our care. And if they have a different policy somewhere else, another thing, we just release them.
No charge.
Or even if they just change their mind and they need to go somewhere else. We're like, okay, it's just one of the heartfelt things we can do. Like, okay, you have a hard enough time, you lost somebody, you're gonna go somewhere else. We just say, okay, just wherever you need to go.
Yeah. So you could always call on us if the
But
family didn't know, even if they don't use this, not gonna be charged.
People often ask, well, what sets us apart from others? Besides our compassion helpline and our grief materials online, we actually vacuum out our crematories after each use, every time. And then we have a chain of custody all the way through, from the hospital all the way down. We have an identification procedure that's required. Either the family comes and sees their loved one, who provides us a photo, which was a recent photo within 6 months, or can give descriptive scars or tattoos. Sometimes if there are no photos, some people are into not taking images of themselves because of their religious preferences in certain cultures and world, but usually they come and view anyway. So But yeah, that's important to us.
We're very strict on all aspects of
That
identification.
and we have a metal disc that we assign to the crematorium and take rubbing. So when we get those back, and our ashes are tagged on the inside, on the bag, and also on the container. And we just make sure that one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, even though we have 3 crematories at one location and 2 other crematories, they're only doing processing and cremating one at a time.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Because that was one of my questions, is I've heard the story of an estate sale in Podunk somewhere, and someone really loved the vase, the container, and bought it at the garage sale, not realizing until they got home that
Mhm.
somebody's remains were in there, and no marker, no nothing.
Nothing on it.
Right, what
Wow.
do you do with that?
Those were probably the old days, you
Right,
know?
before.
Yeah.
And I've had people say, well, we scattered them to the ocean, set them free or something, because they didn't know what else to do with them.
Mhm.
I don't know. You would want to maybe contact the people and say, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
This is what we found.
Yeah.
And like, oh, is that why you shoot my
That's
grandpa?
great.
That's where the grandpa went, or great grandpa.
Shortly after my father-in-law had passed away, he just wanted to be cremated, and he goes, don't you dare spend any money on anything. I just
Like my
take,
dad.
when you go to the Caribbean, take me with you and leave me there. And so it had it in a pretty, it almost looked like a Tiffany's
Mm.
bag.
Mhm.
And the house got broken into. And they opened it up and realized what it was and loved it. But they had opened up the.
Good they didn't take.
We've heard reports of vases being stolen out of people's homes and just left at like Marysville Cemetery.
And then they
We've got
realized.
other
Yeah.
people that found them in garage sale items, or there was one guy who was cleaning out a storage unit, and he's like, I was throwing all this stuff in the dump, but I found this. Can you take it? We're like, well, we really
Oh,
can't,
yeah.
but take it to the police department and they'll, you know.
There's been a few of those.
Yeah, or if it has a name on it, then at least the police can help track it down, and we can try to, if we have a name, we call the local funeral homes, you know, because a lot of us still have the old Rolodex, you know, the card files. We're computerized back to maybe 2000, but before that, it was,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we still have the paper files.
Well, that's cool.
Now, when somebody dies abroad, shall we say they're on a cruise or something, and they have a plan with you, or they're traveling Europe, who is responsible, and how does the body get here for care? Who's in charge of all that? I'm just curious.
Your funeral home here would be, and so, we do have something called travel protection that you can add to your funeral plan if you're someone that does travel a lot. That pays for the entire cost of sending you back. But otherwise, you know, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and consulate, also going out to other countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, people like to have their loved one go home to Vietnam or Mexico or wherever. There's a lot,
Yeah, we send
involved
people
with that.
overseas.
but your local funeral home
Right, well, a lot of people, I'm kind of the Mexico
is. Speak
specialist,
Spanish.
because I translate the documents, I'm fluent in Spanish. Having lived in South America for 2 years, but the other thing is, we did have a guy that went to Peru and died on Machu Picchu. I don't know what he was doing, but he went over the railing, he was trying to get a look, and his wife was just devastated. He was down there with some friends. Actually, it was weird, I think he broke his arm, but I don't know which case it was. There was another guy that was motorcycling.
Yes.
Yeah, that one was the bad one, because it took weeks. She was trying to wire $30,000 to them to get him back.
Yeah,
And the bank, it took like 5 days to clear, and their embalming processes are not like the United States. So when we finally got him, we were worried and there was difficulty. So we would highly recommend, if you travel like me, I mean, go on cruises and stuff, you can buy the cruise protection and stuff that can get you back. But my friend was in England last year and didn't, and his wife found out it was so much, she just said, bury me in England. But I guess he loved England so much, it was a little cheaper. I'm like, wow, I guess she has a reason to go visit England now.
Well, a lot of retired people, the reason I ask is because they go on cruises and they travel in their retirements, right?
Ours is,
So-
I believe, I mean, I'm not, if you can quote me on it, but I think it's now $475, but it's a one-time fee for the rest of your life to get you anywhere in the world back to where you live. Yeah, and that's it's a small monthly fee if you're amortizing over like 3 years, if you're paying for 3 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's worth it if you travel.
Yeah, I think it really is. In fact, I don't think I need to buy it. I'll buy it for my wife.
You bought it. Well, thank
Well,
you so much. Did you have any other
I'm
questions?
getting to the point.
I'm surprised the gold tooth one didn't come up. No?
The gold. Well, I think the titanium hip sort of answered that.
Okay.
No, yeah.
If people say we want the gold teeth, you say contact your dentist.
Yes, yeah.
And then I've had dentists call us,
Dentists.
can you believe they want the gold teeth? And I'm like, doctor, how much would you charge to leave your office and do a procedure? And he goes, oh, good point. And so he comes back with like, oh, this is a $800 procedure.
It's usually not worth it.
That's the last quote I got. And they're like, yeah.
But I've
My,
had people do it.
yeah, we have had.
That is just so.
Because they told them that that's what they wanted. They didn't want to lose the gold. But I have a brother that's a dentist. My grandpa was a dentist. And he's like, look, there's not a lot of gold in the tooth. If it was 24 karat, you can chew it and bend 24 karat.
Right.
And even if it's 14,
Yeah.
you could bite it and dent it. So it's
There you go.
closer to 8.
Cremation, it just means your remains are more valuable.
And it's just a thin layer that captures the tooth.
Yeah.
And now everybody
There you
uses the white, the amalgam.
No,
That's
exactly.
not white.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Pastor Pam. Thank you guys so much for listening to it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kat. Have you got any other questions or comments over there?
No?
You should move the chimney.
No, I
Yeah,
don't have anything else.
Get feeling better, girl.
I
yeah.
hope so.
Oh, well, we'll be back online next week if you're not, so just, yeah,
Okay, oh,
dementia conversation next week, so.
Thank you, Kathy.
yep, thank you.
Feel
Good
better.
night.
Good night.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen the look on the people that broke into the house's face when they realized what happened.
Yeah.